Hello, set apart saints. This is David, and in this Revelation Timeline Decoded video, I'm going to talk about the first trumpet judgment. And it's in Revelation 8:7. It says, "The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burned up, and all green grass was burned up." So recall from the last video that there was a time of peace in the Roman Empire, but the coming storm of trumpet judgments were sounding as barbarian armies gathered to infiltrate the empire. Recall that Edward Gibbon said they were like a dark cloud which burst in thunder. And in the 4th century, a Roman historian said that it was as if the trumpets were sounding the signal for the battle throughout the entire Roman world. And that is the earth of Revelation. So the earth of Revelation is the land of the Roman Empire. It's not talking about the whole earth. So we don't apply these things of 1/3 of the earth, 1/3 of the whole earth, right? We're talking about 1/3 of the Roman Empire. So you basically have the Western Roman Empire, you have the central part, and you have the eastern part that was in Constantinople. So that's the earth of Revelation that we're talking about, and that'll apply in the trumpet judgments. You'll see that played out. Recall that E.B. Elliott said, "The threatening tempest of barbarians, destined soon to obliterate all remaining traces of Roman greatness, was still repelled and suspended on the frontiers of the empire, and was only kept for a season from bursting upon it with destructive violence by the overruling hand of divine providence." So, the first trumpet represents the Goth invasion from about 395 to 410, led by Alaric. The Bible defines hail as symbolic of war. And we look at Job 38:22 to 23. "Have you entered the treasury of snow? Or have you seen the treasury of hail, which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war?" So we see the association of hail, a coming storm, a battle, and war. The symbolism is used of the king of Assyria and his army, who were sent against the house of Israel. In Isaiah 28:2, it says, "Behold, the Lord has a mighty and strong one, like a tempest of hail, and a destroying storm, like a flood of mighty waters overflowing, who will bring them down to earth with his hand." So once again, we see a tempest of hail, a destroying storm, referring to a barbarian army coming against a people group and bringing them down to the earth with his hand. It's not talking about the whole earth. It's talking about the judgment of the house of Israel. So in the land, right, that they occupied, it's talking about judgment coming against them. So once again, we see what the earth is pointing to, not the whole earth, but just an area of land. Fierce Gothic tribes had been at war with the Romans along the northern frontier for many years, but they were restrained by Roman military leader Theodosius. But when he died in 395, the northern cloud of warriors, who had so long been gathering, discharged itself with fury upon the Roman Empire. The barriers of the Danube were thrown open, as an uncommon severity of the winter allowed them to roll their large wagons over the broad and icy back of the river. So here's divine providence that they're able to cross this river at the exact time that they should to invade the Roman Empire. And the Goths moved south in the direction in which literal hail came and attacked the Roman Empire in Greece, Gaul, Spain, and then 300,000 Goths invaded Italy. So the fire represents their scorched earth policy in their invasions of enemy territory, as they burned everything in their path, and there was much blood being poured out. Thus did the first great storm of hail lay waste the Roman Empire. So we see the symbolism. We see the fire coming on the earth on the Roman Empire. We see the hail. We see them coming from the north down like literal hell. So we see the symbolism, right, in these prophecies. So Messiah used symbols to point to a literal fulfillment. So we see the symbolism of hail. We see the symbolism of a storm coming. And here it is, the literal fulfillment. It's reported that Alaric confirmed that Yah, the Heavenly Father, sent him to attack the Romans when he said, "It is not of my own will that I do this. There is one who forces me on and will not let me rest, bidding me spoil Rome." How amazing is that? Because our Heavenly Father commands these barbarian armies and gets them to do his will to carry out his judgment. Edward Gibbon documented the frontiers of Gaul had enjoyed for many years a state of quiet and prosperity. And just read that, what we just went through in the last video. There was a time of peace. And Gibbon, who wrote the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, documented this very thing. He's not a believer. He's not trying to prove prophecy. He's telling you that there was a state of quiet and prosperity. But now, the frontiers of Gaul are being attacked. It says the consuming flames right? So it talked about fire. Messiah told us about fire and war. The flames of war spread around the banks of the Rhine over the greatest part of the 17 provinces of Gaul. The scene of peace and plenty was suddenly changed into a desert, and the prospect of the smoking ruins could alone distinguish the solitude of nature from the desolation of man. Gibbon continues, at the hour of midnight, the Salarian gate was silently opened, and the inhabitants were awakened by the tremendous sounds of the Gothic trumpets. Messiah is giving you trumpet judgments which represent war. They represent army after army attacking the empire. And here's Gibbon, not a believer, telling you that the first trumpet is from the Goths, and they sounded Gothic trumpets. You just can't make this stuff up. They fired the adjacent houses to guide their march and distract the attention of the citizens. The flames, so Messiah foretold fire, the flames, which encountered no obstacle in the disorder of the night, consumed many private and public buildings. This awful catastrophe of Rome filled the astonished empire with grief and terror. So look at the judgment. The Roman Empire killed the saints for their witness. They were burned at the stake, they were fed to lions, and their blood was shed. The Smyrna church martyrs' blood symbolically cried out for vengeance in the fifth seal, and it was given. The trumpet judgment points to barbarian armies being sent against the Romans, spilling their blood and burning everything in path. Do you see the direct connection? In 425, in a book called Ecclesiastical History, Philostorgius documented, the sword of the barbarians carried off large multitudes, and pestilence and famine pressed upon them at the same time together with large herds of wild beasts. Hail too fell in many places, bigger than a stone that would fill the hand. It was found in some parts of such size that it weighed no less than 8 pounds, most clearly revealing the anger of God. How amazing. So we had hail, the symbol of hail, pointing to war against the Roman Empire. But not only that, our Heavenly Father gave us a physical reality in the fact that there was actual hail too. You just, like I said, you can't make this up. This is so, you'll see this pattern in the trumpets, and I'll make a video that summarizes all of them, but you'll see this repeated pattern of symbols pointing to a literal fulfillment, and then also additional physical fulfillment in the natural realm, which just shows you that the Father is so amazing in marking the fulfillment of his prophecies. In the book The Fall of Rome, Mike Duncan uses weather terms to describe Alaric and his army. Far into the dark frontier, an unrepairable reign of destruction was about to befall the Roman Empire. The Visigoths were temporarily pacified by Emperor Theodosius, who granted them more land in northern Greece. After his death, the Visigoths were on the move like a thunderstorm. Led by Alaric, the Visigoths reached the imperial city uncontested in 410. For the first time in over a millennium, barbarian hordes stormed into the eternal city. Once again, we see the exact language that Messiah used to foretell this event. How amazing is the exact fulfillment of our Messiah's prophecy. He heard the saints' cries and prayers and carried out vengeance against the enemies of his saints. The second trumpet judgment points to the next barbarian army being sent to attack the Roman Empire. Our Heavenly Father is faithful to avenge his saints, and I hope this helps you see the fulfillment of the first trumpet. There's a video on the website, the Revelation Timeline Decoded website. Just look at the study list, look at the first trumpet study. There's another video that just provides more detail about these pagan armies. I'm just trying to give you big picture. I'm trying to help you see how historians have documented this. These events were fulfilled. Messiah gave us symbols. They pointed to a literal fulfillment, and it's amazing to behold, and it's so logical. It's so chronological. It all flows and makes sense when you look at it in the big picture. You see the timing of it all. So the first trumpet is not future like so many people see. We have a logical explanation. It makes perfect sense that vengeance was carried out because the saints had cried out for vengeance against the Roman Empire. And here we see it taking place. So I hope that helps you see it. Love y'all. Shalom.